at school we had to, when I was going to the academy, we all had to sing in the choir. So there was 100 of us that sang in the choir. And then there was times that just like the freshmen sang, the sophomores sang. And we were chosen, the academy girls were chosen to go to Buffalo and sing for Bishop Fulton. He did his radio program every Saturday, I think it was. And so we would sing before the program and after the program. And I was in the choir for church, and Sister Margaret Mary told me, just mouth it, don't sing, because I had a terrible voice. And but for that they needed a body. So I got to go up there and I got to meet him, and I was so impressed by him. He became famous on that, but he was such a neat man, but it was, we belonged to the academy girls had to belong to the sodality, and that's part of what we did religiously, was go to different places and do different functions and stuff like that when you're in school. And that, so most of it was interesting on that. There's a few things that was not.
So did World War II impact you guys at all when you were growing up?
Yes.
So talk about that a little bit.
Most definitely.
Okay, well, yeah, my dad went in World War II, went in the Navy, and he went to the Marshall Islands. He was on that, and we talked the same one that I was saying about that I was at, right? So he was in the Navy for over a year, and then it was the end of it. So he come back safely. My Uncle Arthur was in there. A cousin, Uncle Arthur's son, was in there. And he got 7 battle stars, meaning awards, because he was in 7 different
conflicts.
Big battles. Guadalcanal, I don't know if you've heard of it or not. But he came back, and Mother took his Navy uniforms and cut them down for me and Sis, so we could be little Navy people. Other than that, World War II, no, we didn't have much. The government gave us a chunk of cheese, powdered milk, a chunk of lunch meat. And I think that's about it. But welfare, I guess you might call it. But then we had chickens and hogs and stuff, so we didn't starve.
No, we didn't starve. I never knew we were that poor, because we always had food, and back at that time we had the garden, and so my dad bartered with other people, and that's how we got our milk and things that we didn't grow. He bartered with them, and there was a man that had this great big old wagon with horses that he sold like corn and stuff like that. And I remember my dad or my grandmother giving them cucumbers or rhubarb and stuff like that he didn't have, and he'd give her stuff. And I remember going to get the cheese, because we'd have to go with Virginia, get the cheese and the flour, and my grandmother made dresses for us out of the flour sacks. And we got shoes, and we got butter that had, it was whatever it was,
a pound.
a pound, but it was in a thing, and it had a little yellow thing in it, and you squashed that and you started squeezing it, made the butter yellow. And that's what we had. And we, shots were, everybody that needed to get shots got shots at the fire station. We'd go there to get polio shots and stuff like that. And then there was one place where if you needed shoes, you got shoes. And I remember that because my feet were not that big, so I had to have boy shoes. And I hated that I had to wear boy shoes. So
did you understand about the war and all
No.
that was happening?
no, because my dad couldn't go because he had too many children, and that. But my uncle Jimmy went, and Uncle Frank was there. But I didn't really know what war was, other than we had the garden, and that I didn't.
It was kind of like natural way of living, is what
Yeah.
you always used to. And
Mhm.
big changes.
Yeah, we had the farm, so they did the horses. Were training the horses and stuff, and that they would bring them down from Canada, and I think that's how Emerson and my dad made extra money, was training the stallions and the palominos for rodeos and that. So, and the boys did that. So it was like extra money, and then they had the rodeo just about every 2 or 3 weeks. There was always rodeos. And
What about soldiers? Did you see soldiers coming and going at all? Anything like that?
No.
Tanks or anything?
nothing. No.
Well, when I was 8 and 9 years old, I seen this Marine walking through past our houses in that coal town to the next little coal town, which is 2 miles up the road from where we was at. From that time, I was going to be a Marine. So when me
Yeah,
and Chuck
that's
went
right.
up to join the Marines, they wasn't in the office. The only recruiter there was the Army, so we went and joined the Army. So that's why I didn't become a Marine
No. My
But the-
brother did. Yeah, my brother was a Marine.
during the Korean War.
Yeah, during the Korean War.
But Uncle Buster, Uncle Verco, Uncle Lowell, they were in World War II.
So whose brothers were these guys?
My mother's, they were walkers. There was
And how old were
my
they?
mother's brothers.
You know?
I have no idea. In 41.
You figure they're probably in their 20s when they married.
Probably. But Dad was born 1910, so he was 34, 35 years old. And he had 4 kids.
And back then, when they went off to war, they didn't come back sometimes for 2, 3 years
Till it was over with.
till it was over with, depending upon where they were.
So did your dad give up his job in the coal mine to join the war and then come back to the coal mine?
Yes. Yeah. He was what they call a motorman. He was the one that took the other guys down into a railroad car type thing and took them down to where they was digging out the coal. And he would stay there and work and then he would bring them back out.
And he got black lung.
Most of them did.
Most of them did then, yeah.
They had the carbide lamps. Carbide meaning that you had to mix a little bit of water with the lamp was about like this, and it attached to their helmet, and it would like a cigarette lighter. You would flick it and make it come on. That was the light that they had down in that coal mine. They didn't have electricity down in there. Just that coal mine. I got one of them, the lantern out here in my workshop.
So you came to New York because Bob and Arnold they didn't want to go working in the coal mines?
Arnold, my oldest brother Arnold, he's 5 years older than me. So when he got to be, I don't know how old he was at the time, he heard about jobs in this little town outside of Buffalo, New York. So him and Bob Corns, which was lived next door to us, they hitchhiked or something all the way up there. And they got him a job probably the next day. So he got a job and he worked for a while, got some money, and then he told Dad about he could get him a job up there.
In the factory, working in the factories.
So Dad went up there. And I think Bob went with him at the same time. And
I think so, because Bob would talk about all they had to eat was bananas and peanut butter. That's what they lived on, was bananas and peanut butter.
until they got paid.
Yeah, yeah.
And but it was, and then, like I say, in '52, some reason I'm not really sure that it was '52.
Yeah.
But then I think, okay, I was 13 in June of '52, so it had to be '52.
Because you lived in Tonawanda for
North Tonawanda.
North Tonawanda for a couple years
Oh,
before
yeah.
you moved to Lockport.
Yeah. And, but we stayed there in that. We moved up to Grandpa's house up in outside of Beckley. We was up there a few months, and before we packed up and moved on up there to New York.
So Grandpa didn't go ahead of time to start the job or anything like that?
My dad,
Yeah.
yes, he went up with Bob after Arnold went up
Right.
first, and then he told Dad, and
So he left you guys behind then?
yeah, we was there by we lived with my grandpa, which is Mother's dad, for a couple of months probably.
And
then
what kind of jobs were they getting?
Dad got to work in the General Motors plant. They built radiators for trucks, all different sizes of radiators. Arnold got him a job in a plastic factory. I don't know what all they made.
Bob worked the same place Arnold worked, didn't he?
No, Bob got him a job at the
Harrison's.
yeah, which
Oh,
was
okay.
General Motors.
So he worked in Lockport and Arnold worked in North Tonawanda.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is, I don't know, 15, 20 miles from each other. Oh. Yeah. Oh, I didn't tell you about my job when I was 16 years old.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
In Lockport. Dad said, okay, if you ain't going to school, you got to get a job. He took me to Cleveland one time. Just me and him. So you're going to get a job down there in them factories. So we went down there. He says, and when you put in the application, you use Bob's Social Security card. Well, I didn't have one at the time. And I said, okay. But they weren't hiring young people. They knew I wasn't 18 years old. So went back to Lockport and the cotton factory. We made things that you put around a Christmas tree at
Skirts.
Christmas.
The cottons, yeah.
Christmas carts.
Yeah, with the sparklers on it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We made that. The stuff that you put in animals and dolls at the same time. We did that. And so I was 16, and I started working there, making $1 and a nickel an hour. My mother worked there, and Aunt Ducky worked there, and they got 95 cents an hour. Right? And they were working harder than I was. I had a job of making sure the starch got on those big sheets of cotton this wide. They go through rollers. Well, if you look and you'll see a piece of cotton would stick on the rollers, then that would make a fault in the cotton. So I had a big long stick with a wire brush on the end of it. And I'd have to go in there and pull it off of there when it's going around and around. You didn't want to shut down because you're losing money. So I did that, and then Mother and them was up at the other end where the finished product come out, and they were folding those things, putting them in bags. They had chutes. The bag, you would put it on this end where it'll like a funnel. They would fold it here and push it, and it would go in there, and that way it's all folded out nice and pretty in that bag. And that's what they did, and they worked.
Mm-hmm. And
So then,
my family knew when I was seeing him, because I'd have cotton all over my uniform.
But anyway,
Sounds
I
like
worked.
you were a little bit too close to him.
Yeah, well, we were hugging.
When I got there, I told them I was 18. I said, okay. They didn't worry about it. They just had somebody working. Right, so worked there for 2 years, and I quit and joined the Army. So I come back on leave, and I went over there to see the gang and my old boss, and he says, by the way, how old are you anyway? I said, 18. Damn, you was 18 a long time, weren't you?
Well, that's like your mom went over to College Inn to work, her and Aunt Ducky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sheldon and I, we were 17, and we got a summer job there, and we lied about our age, and we worked in a factory, the College Inn factory.
That's one where they put soup and vegetables and stuff in the cans.
Yeah, and when we would work nights, we weren't supposed to at that age, and my dad didn't know. He had no idea, and so I had moved. You had gone in the military, so I moved in with Shelda, with your mom and dad at that time. Yeah, I did. I moved in, and we were working at the factory.
So you're married now?
No,
Okay.
he was already overseas. We were engaged.
No.
Yeah, you were in it. You were overseas. No, where were you? Where were you? Where?
And at the other factory.
No, you were gone when I moved in for the few months before you came home at Christmas time.
Oh, basic training.
Basic training.
That's where I was.
Oh, okay, that's
and then,
where.
And then the carpenter school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was gone
Okay.
from August to December.
Yeah, because you weren't there when I was
Right.
there. And that,
Okay.
so because we worked the same shift, so I just moved in with her. And my dad didn't know. He didn't know I was working at the factory. And that,
So
so,
why didn't you tell him?
well, he thought I was babysitting. So, no, I was making more money, you know, and I knew we were going to get married, so eventually. And that, so I had graduated high school
Mm.
on that, so, and already done like enough credits for associates and that, so I didn't know I had enough for associates. And it wasn't until I started working at the library and Mrs. Kurtzinger checked my records and found out, oh, you got enough credits for associates. So I actually graduated high school at 16
Wow.
and that, so, and before that I had been certified as a babysitter, so I did that, and I was working for a family that the husband was ill, and so I watched the kids, and so then she asked me if I could help out with him, and so she was a hairdresser in the house, so she taught me how to cut hair.
Oh.
Instead of paying me, she paid me for watching the kids, but not helping him. So then Shelby got the idea that she wanted to work in the factory, and it's like, okay, let's go work in the factory. So that's what I did, and then my dad found out, you know, that, and that would have messed up his political, to know that I falsified a document. And all we did was went and copied our birth certificates, took some white out, put another year on it, recopied it, and they never looked that close at it, you know.
Man, the bad things that you guys have done.
But
Oh,
that
I
was,
never did those bad things.
so I say some of the things, yeah, that we did, but I was making
Out of necessity.
I was making
Wow.
99 cents an hour, and thought I was rich, you know, and making a lot of money on that. So, but his mom and Aunt Ducky worked there. They worked up from where we worked on that. So, but when we worked nights, we were putting different labels on the soup cans, and that we were putting Campbell's and others besides College Inn on that. So we did that. Yeah.
You still see the College Inn cans of soup in the
Yeah.
stores. That's the
I've
name
never
of it,
seen
College
it.
Inn.
I've never seen
But there was a lot my dad didn't know until after we were married, and that, so like he didn't know about us doing our stunt in the post office or the
Yeah, she
stuff.
vandalized the post office.
Yeah.
Describe that.
No, we were having a sleepover. We didn't
They
really.
really sound worse than what you've done.
Yeah.
Definitely sound worse than what I've ever done.
But it wasn't. We didn't.
No,
We just
no,
took pencils
If
and
we had
paper.
done that- if we had done that,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah. But it was, you know, a bunch of us together, and we were on, had our pajamas on, and got on our bikes, and Martha lived not too far from the post office, and it's open to go in and drop off stuff, and they had the little desk with the papers and the pencils and stuff like that's all we took was that, you know. But my dad knew about it the next day when I got home, but he didn't know it was me. He didn't
Everybody
know.
Threw papers around. You kind of messed it up.
Yeah, we did a little bit of
See?
that, you know.
A government building.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why my dad didn't know about it, because afterwards when I got home and he was talking about it, I'm like, okay, not saying anything, not saying a word. And it wasn't until I think we went home when you were older, and Flossie was in the hospital. And my dad and I sat on Connie and Orv's porch and talked and and he told me things, and I told him that at one point I hated him because when he was in politics there, we were put to the side, me and my sister, and that unless we were used for photos or dinners or whatever, and I resented it. I hated him, and I really got angry with him when he would let the girls that I was going to school with work in his office, and I had to go pick cherries so that I'd learn how other people lived. I mean, because I didn't know we were poor when I was young. As we got older, we weren't poor, because he was making more money and that. So I didn't know the poorness, of it and that. But I just thought he was being mean because I should have been working in his office, not my girlfriends. They had the easy job. Mm-hmm. I had to climb a tree and pick cherries, although I ate a lot of cherries and got sick.
So you see, you thought your mom was a good Catholic girl.
Exactly.
Well, I was a good Protestant girl, and then I became Catholic and became not such a good girl.
I am such a boring person. Gosh, the things that you all did.
It's the times
I had
of
a boring life. No, when I hear about what Cindy did and what Joey did, and it's like, man, I was so boring.
But you don't know what I did to my brother.
What?
Stuff that I did to my brother.
What?
To Bill.
Might as well confess it.
No, it was when he come back from the war, and from Korean War, and he had changed. I mean, he had the PTSD and all of that, and
Which brother?
Billy. That I'd always been the closest to him, always close to him, and so when he come back, he was like sort of out of control, far as girls were and stuff like that, and so we'd go up to Canada to Victoria and ice skate, and he was a great skater, and he was teaching me to skate. I mean, he'd throw me around, and I mean, I only weighed like 99 pounds or something like that, but we would go up there, and he had I was going to do something, and he didn't want me to do it, and so he locked me in a closet, so I'd miss out on the time to be there. And so I was going to get back at him, just like I got back at him when I had a date with him and he threw me in the bathtub full with water because he didn't think I should be going out with him. Mm-hmm. So we went up there, and we went with another couple, and so he asked this girl that he had just met to go. And so the couple was in the front, and his girlfriend, he was in the middle, and I was on the side of him. So I played it up like I was his ex-girlfriend. Like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Why don't you go out with me anymore? And this girl's hearing all of it. And so by the time we got home, she just opened the door, got out, and walked away. And he's like, don't you do that to me again. But when I was before he went to Korea, he was a Casanova too, and we had a spot in Lockport. It was called the Lover's Lane up near on Transit, and one night, Kathy
We
and
never
I.
went there.
No, we didn't. I was going up there. The cops kept an eye on that place. But we went up there and just as a prank. I got a lot of that from my grandmother and my father because they did pranks. And so we had a spotlight. And so we waited until the car started moving, shined the spotlight on like we were a cop, and Kathy Lloyd, she's, that deep voice, "What are you doing in there?" And you could hear the bouncing and everything. And we took off running.
I'd do something like that.
Yeah, that was
idea.
funny. That was fun. He did stuff like that. He would do things that, especially when we lived in Frankie Ballinger's house, was because Gloria and I would sleep outside in the summertime on the porch because it was scary sleeping inside, and he'd tell us that because the house made noises, and mainly it was because of the old furnace. But you swore somebody was down in the basement. I was usually petrified to go down in that basement because it had a big cistern as you went down, and then you had to walk past the cistern to go back and get canned goods or whatever. And him and Ernie would always tell us that, "Oh yeah, Frankie, they buried Frankie down there, and he's there, and he roams around at night, and he'd do it. He'd make Gloria. He'd be home. He'd sneak in the back way up the back stairs, and make noise, and then we're the only ones in the house, And so we got where her and I would sleep outside because we didn't know. We woke up one night with a ghost standing over us, and it was Billy. Yeah. So he liked to pick on us. But we would pick on Chuck because Chuck was mean. He was just plain mean, and he'd hurt us.
Because he was little.
He was little, and he was mean. He was a bully, and that. So, but he was scared of the dark, and so he'd go up the front stairs because his bedroom was up the stairs and right there. Our bedroom was going up the stairs, the back stairs where the kitchen was, and up that way because our bedroom was down the hall in there. So we'd sneak up there and we'd turn off that top light as you go. The light goes only as far as the first landing, and then you'd go to the second landing and there's a light. But there's long strings, so you'd have to pull it. So we'd sneak up there and we'd turn it off. So do it so where he couldn't do it, and we'd hear him going up and switch that and switch it, and turn around. He'd walk back down. That, or we'd hang over the balcony and with string and that, and let it go across his head, and he didn't know what was getting him. All that, so he'd get a little paid back. All that, but it was interesting. That house was a little scary. That was one that it was belonged to the state. It was in probate, and so old Frankie Ballinger died in the house. He was a recluse. And so we lived there, I think, 5 or 6 years. And so they asked if they could take the wallpaper down, paint, and clean the place up. And when they took wallpaper down, there was money all in he's put in the wallpaper. And I don't know how much. It was a lot. It was a lot of money. And that, so because
see for mobsterhood there.
No, that was another thing with mobsters. It was my dad. That's another story. The big yellow house on Lincoln Avenue, out there on Lincoln Avenue, is one where a girl that I went to school with was there, and my dad was sure that there was mob dealings that went on there. It was Italian mobsters, you know. But so they'd have parties there. So one night my dad asked me when I was going, he said, when you go, check the layout of the house. And I'm like, why? He said, just check out the layout of the house. So I did. And I come home and I told him the layout of the house. And he said, mm-hmm. And next thing I know, the cops were in there. There was a secret room, is where they held their drugs and their stash, and everything was in that room. And that's why he wanted the layout, is to where was what and how it was. And so I felt bad for the girl because her father went to jail, you know. On that, I mean, he got out on bail for a while, but on that, but yeah. But they were doing drugs and that, so, and that was his job, is to get rid of it. And that, so